I once helped my friend pick weeds in her small farm. This is difficult work that's required anytime you try to grow plants. And when I arrived, the first thing she asked was, "How good are you at knowing the difference between plants and weeds?" And I appreciated the question because although some of you know I have some farm experience from my childhood, it's good to have a refresher. I didn't want to make a mistake and pull the wrong thing. So she went on to show me the particular vegetables and herbs that were planted in the area I was working in. And there were a lot of weeds. I don't know if anyone had taken care of them yet. Then I saw the carrots, and I was glad that she pointed out what the carrots were, because if you know about other plants in the carrot family, there's some things we call weeds or wildflowers, depending on who you are. But there's Queen Anne's lace that looks really similar before it flowers, or there's poison hemlock that also looks really similar to carrots. And so you have to know the difference. Someone else had been helping the day before, and they accidentally pulled some carrots thinking they were weeds. So I didn't want to make that mistake. And for about an hour, I worked my way through rows of plants. It was actually, I think, probably just one row. There were a lot of weeds. And sometimes I had to take a closer look to figure out the difference. Sometimes I had to pull around the plant and see what was there because it seemed hidden. But I could see my progress. And then after we pulled the weeds, we put some mulch down in between the rows to help keep them from coming back quickly. My friend came over and found a carrot plant that had been pulled out, and I quickly said, "That wasn't me." But then upon a closer look, it turned out that wasn't a carrot plant either. It was a weed. We were about to replant it, but then we realized it wasn't actually a carrot. Knowing the difference between weeds and plants and keeping those weeds away is hard work. There's also a gray line in between weeds and flowers or wildflowers or whatever you want to call it. But I've eaten dandelion leaves in a salad, and it was pretty good. And then I've tried to contain daylilies to a small space, and that doesn't work very well. They grow like weeds. Last week we talked about the parable of the sower, and I'm going to pick on my mom now too, because she looked at the readings and thought, I think it's the same as what we had in church last week. It seems like it's the same reading, but it's not a mistake. It's just very similar. The sower plants seeds and just has enough seeds that he doesn't care necessarily where they go. Enough of them will fall on good soil. But now this parable is called the weeds among the wheat. And so in this parable, Jesus shares that there's a person who sows seeds in their field, but while everyone was asleep, someone came and spread weeds. Someone snuck onto the property and planted weeds among the already planted seed, and then they disappeared. And then when the plants start coming up, so do the weeds. So people are questioning how to harvest the plants, or should they pull the weeds? What should they do? But they ask, do you want us to go and gather the weeds? And the reply is, let them both grow together, the weeds and the wheat. The ones planted with good intention and the ones planted by the enemy. Let them both grow together. And the reason is because if you try to pull up the weeds, it might pull up the plant as well. And then Jesus compares the kingdom of heaven to this parable. Jesus acknowledges that there is good and evil. And he recognizes both of these things and holds them in tension. He doesn't offer quite an easy fix for it or easy answers. There's a formula, but as we hear, that's a little bit difficult. The other problem with weeds is that if we do try to get rid of them, they just come back. We work hard to do the right thing in life, but there's so many obstacles and things in our lives that can bring us down. There's many ways we don't act as well as we could. There's people we find difficult to be loving toward. And sometimes we feel like we've been trying to do everything right in life, and we find out that the weeds have been sown among the good plants. The weeds are living among us and bringing us down. In Romans, Paul says that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. And so we must remember that it is Jesus who sows the good seeds. That's who the phrase Son of Man refers to in this gospel. Because we've been placed on earth by God, and we're looked after and taken care of by God. And we hope in God's unconditional love through this life and through eternity. Paul's advice for when things are difficult is to wait with patience. But that's easier said than done. But he reminds us to hope, and he says, "In hope we are saved." And so as we hope in God through the difficult times, as we hope in God for all of the big and hard things in our lives, God also hopes in us. God also has unconditional love for us. God gives us life where we didn't know it was possible, and sometimes strength when we didn't think we had it on our own. And God continues to support us as we grow, as we are people of God, always growing, always learning for the rest of our lives about God's unconditional love. Amen.